Hello, Desert Monk here yet again. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about why sometimes waiting to make a decision can be beneficial to you. A lot of people feel like they have to, you know, pick everything right here, right now, and then move on to the next, and the next, and the next, and it's just an endless cycle of rushing through life. And what people forget is life's pretty important, you know, at least to yourself. It should be. So to go around and rush through all these decisions that are going to impact your life without taking time and really deciding what's best for you is not good. It does not end well a lot of the time. Sometimes you might get lucky and it works out, but a good rule to live by is if you don't have to make a decision right now, don't make it. If it doesn't need to be done, just sit on it for a little bit. And I try to practice that in my life, and it's worked out favorably. It's just one of those things where if you're too hasty, you could end up making an even greater issue for yourself. So it's always good to just take a step back, breathe, and realize that you don't necessarily need instant gratification. You don't need whatever you think you might need right now. So, for example, if this is a very simple example, would be like rushing in to decide what color you were going to paint the wall in your living room. That doesn't necessarily have to be decided on right this second. You know, there could be more pressing matters in your house that you could put more time and energy into. So say you had bad plumbing, why jump onto the wallpaper first? Like, just leave it, handle the plumbing, which is a more immediate scenario, and then come back to the wallpaper. And during that time that you gave yourself to breathe on that decision, you might end up coming up with a better choice for the wallpaper. And since you're not worried about the wallpaper, you'll have a clearer mind dealing with the plumbing. So it works twofold in that sense. And this is just a rule for many, many things. You know, like, you're not gonna decide what to eat if you're not hungry, you know? Or let's say you do, then you are hungry, but you wanted the fish. But it's too late because you bought the steak in haste, you know? Now you gotta eat the steak. But if you just waited until you were hungry, you felt like fish, well, you could have had it, but you jumped the gun, you know? That happens a lot in life, in more important scenarios than what I'm giving, but these are just like generals that everybody can understand. So, you know, keep that in mind. Not everything has to be done right now. And that doesn't mean you're stagnant, doing nothing. It just means that energy is being put towards more important things that need to be dealt with right now. And that's perfect. You don't want to be burnt out on a bunch of small decisions that had no impact when you finally have to deal with a big decision that needs to be dealt with right now, but you were already worried about a bunch of other stuff that wasn't really going to impact you one way or the other. Like whether the wallpaper was white or charcoal gray or any color that you prefer, that wallpaper is not going to do anything for you. It's a cosmetic decision. It won't improve your well-being overall. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, I got off work early today, and a pretty smooth day. We had 2 fitness calls. First one being a elliptical making a noise that arguably is one of my least favorite things to deal with for service calls, because there's a lot of pivot points and a lot of hinges and moving parts on an elliptical, so it's very hard to dial down where the sound is coming from. Luckily this time we were able to find out that it was coming from the ramp, so all it really needed was tightening of some bolts, and it had a missing washer, so threw that on and as good as new. Second call was moving in a treadmill into a lady's house, and it went smooth. Depending on the doorway, normally you have to take the arms off, so you can then turn the entire treadmill, where you're running on its side, and dolly it in on a 4-wheel dolly. So pretty smooth, you know. A lot of people freak out thinking that we're gonna have to just do pure manpower carrying this heavy equipment in there, but it tends to be a little easier than you would expect sometimes, you know. And you know, when I get to these calls, I look at the doorways, and if there's cement or gravel, I weigh all these out. And it's funny, like driving to the call, I worry a lot, you know. I always assume it's gonna be a hard call. And in a way, I kind of live life like that. I assume things are gonna be hard. And then when you get there, turns out, a lot of the time, they're not that hard. And then after you're done, you realize, what was I so worried about? But for me, I almost do it in a way that it makes my life more appealing. So if you assume things are going to be hard and then they're not, you get, whether you like it or not, you're going to get hit with like a sense of relief, which helps your nervous system and can be beneficial, you know. So a good way to live your life would be prepare for the worst, but expect the best. You know, so no matter what comes your way, you were ready for it. And then when it turns out to not be that bad, like a lot of my calls are, there's nothing to worry about. You know, it's smooth sailing. And there's never anything wrong with being too prepared. So yeah, that was about it. Other than that, later today, I will be getting in a little bit of training. I guess I should call it weight training. I do practice martial arts, but I want to be specific on what I'm doing today. Today will be a leg day. We will be doing lower weight, high reps, really dial in the form. It's going to be squat, it's going to be deadlift, it's going to be lunges, and it's going to be probably some wall sits. I'll throw some wall sits in there. This will just be at the house. I'm not going to the gym or anything. And legs are very important in your core for more than you'd ever give credit to. Especially in fighting, you know, like that's your base. Whether you're boxing, a lot of people focus on the arms, the chest. Despite what some people say, a bench press can be pretty important for your power. I hear certain fighters mention that they do not lift weights, you know, in their routines, and I would recommend at least, if you're in a plunging sport, I know Taekwondo is mainly just kicks, but like, it's going to improve your power, whether you like it or not. So it's always good to mix a little bit of that in. Push-ups are great. There's a guy fighting this weekend on the UFC card that is, he has a regimen of like 1,000 push-ups in an hour. And I guarantee you, those reps increase his power. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And on top of that, it builds mental toughness. You know, how many people do you know that are willing to or have done 1,000 push-ups in an hour? Not many, you know? And that's another thing, is you want mental toughness when you're competing, because a lot of guys will win off of their toughness more than their skill. Or cardio, you know? Like, there's plenty of guys that look fantastic in the first round, and they start wilting until they drop down to the level or lower to their opponent who has better cardio. The guy with the better cardio ends up winning. So these are all things to consider. Like I've said before, you want to be a whole. You want to be a complete person. And a lot of that works into its way with fighting. You know, you can have a great jab, but man, if you're orthodox, right, you're throwing the left for the jab, but you're keeping your hand down here, you're gonna get caught right in the chin. So it's the little things, one thing at a time. You know, you don't have to get it all in one shot. You have to just be willing to acknowledge your faults and work on them, and I promise you, you will get better. So, in a closing message on my spiel here is, don't rush, take your time, get better day by day. Don't make hasty decisions if you don't have to right on the spot. Usually if you give that some breathing room and some time to digest, your second or third decision that you've come up with while waiting to decide on what you're going to do is going to be better than whatever your first one was. So, God bless. Desert Monk. I will be back again. And you guys have a great weekend.